Hey guys, in today's video I bring you a chilling and profoundly transformative story. The incredible journey of Zafira Montgomery, who faced a tragic accident in Portland and lived a near-death experience that led her to discover a world of light, revelations, and mystical encounters with the eternal love of her husband, Jonathan. Get ready to dive into an intense narrative that will challenge everything you believe about life and the afterlife. So, before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this, and don't forget to comment from which city you're watching this video. My name is Zafira Montgomery, and, as I recount this experience, I feel a mixture of emotion and responsibility. I clearly remember the morning everything changed. The air seemed charged with an inexplicable energy, and as I prepared to face an ordinary day, something inside me sensed that the ordinary was about to transform. Today, I'm going to share something that no one ever imagined experiencing. I murmured to myself, almost as if I were talking to a future version that knew the importance of what was coming. For years I believed that being a good person was enough to walk the path of peace. But the truth, the one I learned so abruptly, transcends any superficial teaching. I felt that the time had come to open my heart and reveal the secrets of an encounter with the unknown. A story that breaks the conventional and challenges the barriers of what is meant by life and death. This narrative is not just mine, but that of all those who, even without knowing it, carry within themselves a connection with the infinite. Between sighs and looks that vary between doubt and curiosity, I am willing to tell every detail, every emotion that invaded my being in that unique moment. It was as if, upon starting this journey, each word became a bridge between what was and what would be, between the tangible and the ethereal. My voice rises, not only to report a sequence of events, but to share a truth that resonates in every fiber of my being, and that I hope can touch those who, like me, seek to understand the depth of existence. And so, with my heart racing and my mind full of vivid memories, I begin to unravel the threads of a story that changed the course of my existence. For many years, my life followed a routine marked by practicality and the belief that to be happy, it was enough to act kindly and keep my feet on the ground. I saw faith as something distant, a personal choice that didn't need to interfere with everyday life. In my daily conversations, I often expressed that the good we do in the world was enough to bring inner peace. I believe that love and compassion are the keys to life, I used to say with a calm smile, demonstrating my conviction that spirituality did not need to be formalized. In contrast, Jonathan, my husband, was driven by an intense and deep faith. He spent hours reading sacred texts, meditating and praying with a devotion that often left me amazed and perplexed. I remember one morning as we were having coffee, he commented, "Zafira, I feel that there is a greater force guiding us, and that our every act has an echo in the universe." His words, full of conviction, made me reflect on the existence of dimensions that I had never considered. Although his faith was a pillar in his life, it also created a subtle barrier between us, a contrast between the pragmatism of my everyday life and the vibrant spirituality he fervently embraced. Our differences, although often the source of small arguments, have always remained a balanced dynamic. While I sought practical solutions to everyday challenges, Jonathan immersed himself in reflections on the destiny of souls and the divine purpose of existence. This duality, which initially seemed like an obstacle, ended up becoming an enriching exchange, where each point of view contributed to our personal evolution. In our moments of intimacy, I listened attentively to his narratives of signs and miracles, even though I secretly remained skeptical. Still, there was something in his eyes, a sparkle that hinted at a truth beyond words and that, in a way, prepared me for the experience that would shake all my certainties. That morning in Portland was filled with an unusual atmosphere. As we drove down a wet avenue, the gray sky reflected the impending chaos. The sound of rain hitting the windshield was almost hypnotic, but suddenly, everything was transformed. In an instant, the asphalt, slippery and treacherous, conspired against us. "Jonathan, be careful," I shouted, but my voice was lost in the sudden crash of a devastating impact. The car began to spin uncontrollably, as if reality itself had surrendered to the force of that moment. The world seemed to slow down as I struggled to maintain some sense of orientation. Lights flickered, reflections mixed, and time became an abstract concept. In the midst of that whirlwind, every second stretched into an eternity of confusion and panic. I could hear the muffled screams, the metallic sound of glass shattering, and, for a brief moment, existence itself seemed to hang on the edge of the abyss. "Zafira, hold on tight," I heard Jonathan shout, his voice filled with a desperation I had never heard before. However, in the midst of so much disorder, I felt a strange sense of detachment. My body, tied to the vehicle and that scene of destruction, seemed to begin to let go of what I knew as reality. The impact dissipated, and in a second that simultaneously extended and faded, everything became a blur of colors and sounds. Amidst the confusion, the intense flash of a moment that refused to be explained flooded my senses, announcing the beginning of something I could never have predicted. The world, at that very moment, lost all its familiar shape. The rain, the screams, the shattered glass, and the noise of the accident merged into a chaotic symphony that took me to a state where time seemed to freeze. It was as if the universe, for a brief moment, revealed the fragility of human existence and the imminence of a radical transformation. My heart was beating hard, but a strange peace was beginning to creep into the chaos, foreshadowing that something extraordinary was about to happen. I felt an inexplicable lightness invade every fiber of my being, as if suddenly the weight of the world had dissipated. At first, I was surprised to realize that I no longer belonged to that body that was now trapped in the chaos of the accident. While everything around me still seemed to pulse with the energy of distant impacts and noises, a feeling of serenity came over me, accompanied by a clarity I had never experienced before. It was at that exact moment that I realized I was floating, as if the air itself was turning into a gentle sea, enveloping me in an unearthly calm. I looked down, and with a mixture of amazement and acceptance, I saw my body motionless, stretched out on the wet asphalt. The image was surreal and almost disconcerting. The person I had always known was there, silent and inert, while I, freed from physical confinement, experienced a dimension where time seemed to lengthen and transform. As I walked away, I could notice that every detail intensified. The colors of the environment, previously opaque, now gained vibrant hues, and the shapes became almost ethereal. In this state of detachment, my thoughts roamed freely without the limitations of matter. It was as if I had been invited to watch, from the outside, the spectacle of my own existence, understanding that the body was just a temporary vehicle for a much vaster essence. As I floated, a mixture of calm and restlessness was present, reminding me that I was crossing an unprecedented border between the physical and the spiritual. The feeling was not one of panic, but of a curious acceptance, as if every fiber of my being understood that something profound was about to reveal itself. The experience, although full of mystery, awakened in me a new perception about the fragility and grandeur of life. While I was in this state of fluctuation, something unexpected touched my heart. Amidst the whirlwind of colors and distorted sounds, I noticed a familiar figure approaching. There was Jonathan, my husband, but not like the man I knew. He moved with an ethereal grace, emanating an intense light that seemed to transform the surrounding environment. His gaze, serene and filled with an almost divine compassion, made me feel a mixture of relief and strangeness. "Zafira, I'm here." Her voice echoed softly, as if coming from a place where time and space blended together. Even without being able to reach him physically, I felt his affection overflowing and his presence filling every corner of my consciousness. I tried with all my strength to get closer, but an invisible barrier, as imposing as it was mysterious, prevented our worlds from meeting. Every word we exchanged, although charged with emotion, was punctuated by a sense of distance that transcended physical space. As I watched, Jonathan's image unfolded in enchanting detail. Her hair, bathed in a silvery glow, seemed to wave softly, and her eyes shone with a light that was both welcoming and piercing. "I can't let you go alone," he whispered, his words mixing tenderness and a determination I'd never seen before. The barrier between us was like a veil of mist, subtle but insurmountable in that moment, reminding me that no matter how deep our love was, there were limits imposed by the very nature of the unknown. This scene, full of conflicting feelings, involved me in a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, the desire to join him was immense, while, on the other, the awareness that each one belonged to a different reality impelled me to accept what was beyond reach. It was as if we were destined to meet, but only in a future where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual finally dissolved. The approaching light was so intense that, for a brief moment, it seemed to swallow all the colors in the room, transforming the chaos into a sea of serenity. Suddenly, the darkness of the accident gave way to an almost palpable glow which enveloped me completely. I felt as if an ancient force was leading me to a place where time dissipated and the anxieties of the world became insignificant. As the light embraced me, a soft and authoritative voice echoed in the silence that had formed. "Zephyra, you are not alone," said this voice, filled with a tenderness that soothed and at the same time aroused deep reverence. It was not just the sound of words, but an invitation to transcend the limits of physical existence. I, still astonished by the new reality that was unfolding, responded with a whisper. "Who are you? Why am I here?" The response didn't take long. The presence that was felt manifested itself in the form of an ethereal figure, with delicate and at the same time imposing features, whose appearance radiated an indescribable peace. His countenance, shaped by a soft light, revealed an ancient wisdom that seemed to understand the mysteries of the universe. "I am the guardian of the souls that seek the truth beyond the veil," she declared as her eyes met mine, conveying a certainty that surpassed any rational explanation. The surrounding environment transformed into a space where matter and spirit came together in harmony. The words of the divine presence mixed with the radiance emanating from it, and each sentence was like a brushstroke that redefined the contours of reality. "Here, in this moment, you will have the opportunity to see what many have never imagined. Let the fear dissipate, for every experience you have now is an essential part of your path." His words were accompanied by a comforting warmth, as if every speck of light was a reminder that I was being led to a new level of existence. I let myself get involved, absorbing each teaching and allowing the truth to reveal itself, with the certainty that the journey was just beginning. As I was led by that transformative light, my eyes were opened to a vision I had never imagined. A celestial city, which seemed to pulsate with a life of its own, built on foundations of light and pure energy. Each building, with organic shapes and soft contours, radiated a silvery hue, as if each stone was cut by time and the wisdom of the universe. As I walked through streets that floated in the air, I felt a deep peace and at the same time the urgency to understand what was before me. As I walked forward, I could see that I was not alone. On every corner, serene souls walked in silence, immersed in a process that seemed to last 7 days. In the midst of this harmony, I heard whispers and dialogues full of meaning. "Every day is a revelation, a choice that sculpts destiny," I heard from afar, as if the winds themselves carried the message of those who had already passed there. The idea that every moment was an invitation to reflection and transformation touched me in an indescribable way. As I moved through luminous squares and hanging gardens, the divine presence manifested itself again, this time as a silent guide pointing to key moments in the journey. "Observe, Zephyra, how the essence of each soul reveals itself little by little," said a soft voice as I saw some travelers stop to contemplate the inner glow that emanated from themselves. This process of revelation lasted 7 days, a period in which each soul went through profound choices: accept the truth that was being revealed or remain in the uncertainty that caused suffering. The beauty of that setting was accompanied by a feeling of responsibility and reflection. I felt that every step I took, every look thrown at those who walked there, urged me to reevaluate not only my destiny, but that of all beings. The structures vibrated with an ancient energy, and the entire environment felt like a temple where time, light, and truth met to bring about spiritual rebirth. This 7-day journey was not just a rite of passage, but the manifestation of a greater purpose, where conscious choice was the key to the final destination. The divine presence intensified, and, in that environment of light and revelation, I felt that my soul was about to receive a burden and a mission that I could never imagine. As she walked through that celestial city, the ethereal figure approached with serene authority, and in a tone that mixed tenderness and firmness proclaimed, "Zephyra, there is a truth that you must take back to this world. You have been chosen to be the bringer of the light that will illuminate the paths of those who still walk in darkness." His words echoed in the silence, awakening in me a whirlwind of emotions, fear, sadness, and a strange sense of duty. "But why me?" I asked, my voice choked with disbelief and anguish. The divine presence responded with a calm that transcended human explanations. "Because you, who lived between the practical and the spiritual, carry within you the ability to unite these two worlds. Your experience is the bridge that connects earthly existence to the truth that lies beyond it." These words penetrated my being, awakening a deep awareness that my destiny no longer belonged only to what I knew. As I listened, images of a future formed before my eyes. A future where I, Zephyra, walked among crowds, sharing every detail of what I witnessed, highlighting the ephemerality of life and the importance of spiritual choices. The voice continued, sweet, but imperative. "You must return not just to live again, but to teach, to inspire, to show that every decision has the power to transform the destiny of souls. Your journey is a lesson for all those who seek truth and light." The revelation was intense and loaded with meaning. The responsibility that now rested on me was immense, but at the same time, a strange peace enveloped me, as if, finally, I had found the reason for all my uncertainties. Every word of the divine presence was transformed into an irresistible call, an invitation to transcend the ordinary and embrace the extraordinary. I felt at that moment that my destiny was sealed, a destiny of mission and love, of pain and redemption that needed to be shared so that others could awaken to the reality of eternity. Back at the hospital, the feeling of having crossed dimensions still reverberated in my soul, even as my body recovered. The devastating news of Jonathan's loss hit me with the force of thunder. Tears ran silently down my face, mixing with disbelief and deep sadness, but at the same time, the revealed mission persisted in every beat of my heart. Amidst doctors and family, the pain was palpable, but I knew that carrying the burden of this truth was a responsibility that would transcend any earthly suffering. As I rested in a hospital room lit by soft light, I felt that the transformation I had experienced was not restricted to the mystical space but was already beginning to modify my daily existence. In conversations with nurses and friends, he murmured almost in a secret whisper, "I have seen what lies beyond. I know that our spiritual choices define our destiny." Some looks were of pure disbelief, while others showed restless curiosity, but no words seemed capable of expressing the magnitude of what I had experienced. When leaving the hospital, the world seemed, in a way, unreal. The colors and sounds carried a new weight, a depth that had previously escaped me. Every step I took was a reminder that life was fragile and precious, and that the message entrusted to me was urgent. In the midst of this internal turmoil, I began to record my thoughts and experiences, transforming the pain of loss into a vital impulse to share the truth of the afterlife. "Zephyra, you have the light to transform the darkness that plagues the world," echoed in my mind like a mantra. I knew that although the reunion with Jonathan was now just a memory of a transformed love, his essence remained alive in me, fueling my determination to alert, inspire, and teach. My life would never be the same, and each day became a new chapter in a mission that transcends physical existence, a call for everyone to become aware of eternity and the choices that define our souls. The golden light that had transformed me was now becoming a living legacy, a pulsating force that drove me to walk towards a new purpose. Upon leaving the hospital and returning to the city, I realized that each scar, each physical mark, carried the memory of a rebirth, proof that the divine revealed itself in the vulnerability and courage to face existence. In impromptu gatherings in cafes, parks, and community halls, I met with those who longed to understand that life, even with its pain and loss, was an ongoing opportunity for learning and love. "Thorn, your story illuminates the darkness of so many hearts," said a young man, his eyes shining with the hope of someone who finally saw the possibility of transformation. With the unwavering support of Lily, who always believed in the power of new beginnings, and Carter, who silently inspired me to move forward, we founded a meeting center where stories mixed, forming a mosaic of overcoming and resilience. Serafina Wilder, the enigmatic healer, and Julian Cross, the mentor who had once challenged my certainties, began to guide the discussions and moments of reflection. In each conversation, the words exchanged became bridges that united souls, and personal stories previously viewed with fear were now celebrated as achievements of the human journey. The city, with its streets that pulsated with daily life, took on new contours with the presence of that center. Each encounter was a lesson that the true divine was not a distant and punitive entity, but an energy of unconditional love, which manifests itself in every gesture of solidarity. The divine is in the embrace that comforts, in the word that encourages, in the hand that extends without expecting anything in return, I stated, with the conviction of someone who has experienced the impossible and returned to share the beauty of rebirth. In this way, my legacy was created not only in the stories I tell, but in the transformation of each being who allows themselves to feel and start over. Every dawn was an invitation to live intensely, and with the certainty that even when we fall, light awaits us. I followed my mission to illuminate the paths of those who, like me, were looking for a greater meaning in life. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.